Good afternoon, Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I am the spiritual leader here at the center, and we're so glad to have you join us here this afternoon. I am super excited about our broadcast. We had a little bit of a change from what we expected to do last week. We were going to have Donna and Norma talk with us about their journey and adventure in New York City. But there was a little change in plans, and I had the wonderful opportunity and ability to bring on the woman that we're going to have today, whose name is Jhody Polk, and I can't wait to tell you all about her. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about who we are at the Center for Spiritual Living. And let me bring this up here. So to welcome you officially, who we are at the Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. We are part of a much larger organization that is called Centers for Spiritual Living, and these are our values. Number one, spiritual growth and practice. We value love, we value appreciation, community, freedom, which is our theme for this month. We're going to be talking all about freedom. Creativity, health and wholeness is another thing that we value, as well as generosity and financial well-being. Our mission at the Center for Spiritual Living is the same as the mission of the larger organization, which is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. And our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, meaning that we know that we have everything that we need within us already. And our purpose, our aim is to help to free that magnificence and to have everybody recognize that within themselves and within others. And our vision is a world that works for everyone. And so, to help get us started and kick us off in the right way, I'm going to invite our practitioner, Donna Davis, onto the stream here. Hey, Donna.
Hi.
Hey. So Donna is joining us from the Keys, and that was part of our little change up this week. So you want to just jump on in there, Donna, tell them what's up.
Yeah, so I got another call to get an assignment to go to the Keys for COVID-19. So here I am. And I didn't know that I'd be able to jump on. So instead of having us be a little wishy-washy, I decided to kind of let Reverend Cindy know that I might not be able to make it. And so we decided to schedule it for later. But I'm so excited that I ended up being off today. Either way, I get the chance to do the treatment. So I'm just honored to be here. And Jhody is an amazing person. I can't wait to hear her story.
Yes, we're so excited. I wonder if I should bring Norma in here just so people can see her pretty face. I'm going to add you in. Just wave at us. Hey, Norma. Norma's in Ocala. Take you off of the, unmute yourself there. No, I guess not. You want to mute yourself, Norma?
Yes, I'm here in Ocala, getting the dollhouse ready for our future endeavors here. So it's kind of loud, so I'm going to stay muted throughout the session.
Okay. I just think it makes people happy to see your face and know you're well.
This is the first time in 14 years we've ever been apart. It has been a challenge for me to be here and her there. It's just, I'm working on it.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, doesn't it? All right, Norma, I'm going to take you out of the stream here. Bring Donna back in. And Donna, you just such an awesome prayer warrior that I just look forward to hearing what Spirit is going to speak through you this afternoon.
Okay, so I'm just going to invite us all to just take a deep breath. Allow our bodies to just settle into wherever space we're in, whether it's in our chair or on our bed or on the ground. It doesn't matter. Just allowing the breath to come easily to me right now. It is in this space that I recognize the allness of the one, that one universal energy that is in and through and around all things, this beautiful essence that is life itself. I call this wonderful thing God. Everywhere there is God. There is no space that God is not in. And since that is true, I know that where I sit, the presence of the divine is there too. My very being is breathing and living in this wonderful life energy that is God. I know that is true for me and for every person who is listening to me right now. For those who aren't even aware of that presence, they too still sit in that space of the divine energy that is God. It is this divine energy. It is alive and creative and magnificent and unconditional love. I know that today, as this energy steps forward to share its story with us in the form of Jhody, she too is God expressing all of her experiences, all of her journeys, the lessons she has learned, the victories and the triumphs that she will share with us today. I know that all of it is divinely unfolding. And since I know that is true, I can't wait to hear and to learn and to experience with her as she takes us through the journey that is her life. I'm so grateful for each and every person that shows up and for each and every expression of the one. And so I release this into the law, knowing that it's always unfolding for the highest and best of all of us. And I say, so it ends, and so let it be.
And so it is. That was beautiful. Thank you, Donna.
My pleasure, always. It's my favorite thing to do.
With an introduction like that, we just can't go wrong, huh? Thank you, honey. Love you. I'll bring you back into the stream a little bit later.
Okay.
All right. All right. Okay, so I am again just so excited to share with you our guest today. I have met the most amazing people since I've been on this journey, especially in the peace building realm. I met Jhody, I guess it was 2015 or 2016. It was shortly after I became a minister, and brought Jhody in to speak and to share about an initiative that was to allow people who had been had felony records to be able to get the vote. And so Jhody came here and we spoke and we walked around the center and we visioned and we talked about possibilities for this place. And it wasn't long after that that I got a position at the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building. And lo and behold, who was working there but Jhody Polk? And so I got to know this amazing woman on a whole other level. And I'm just so excited to share her with you and for you to know who she is. Ah, it brings me to tears. I'm just so excited to have you with us. So I'll bring you into the stream. Oh, Jhody. Let me hang on one second here. Okay. Hey, girl, you looking beautiful.
Thank you so much. I have never, this is the most warmest welcome I've ever received. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm so excited to have you join us. So, I guess, well, what I didn't tell, so much of your story that there's just so much. What you do right now as an advocate for people in vulnerable communities, in your law work. I mean, there's just so many things that you're doing, but I want to give people maybe a chronological of where you've been and how we ended up here in this conversation today. So, the most amazing thing to me about you is probably the depths, the pain of where you've been and how you have brought yourself out on the other side of that, to be a George Soros Fellow and so many amazing things that you're doing. So let's start with maybe if you would share with us the circumstances that kind of led to you being at Florida Department of Corrections and how that part of your life started on you on this path.
It was really interesting too, because at the time that I was arrested and ultimately sentenced to an 8-year sentence in the Florida Department of Corrections, it was actually 13 years, 8 years in, 5 years out. At that time, I was a dual enrollment student. I was a college student. I was a Bell's bondsman. I had 2 little babies, a 5-month-old and a 2-year-old. And I mean, on the outside, it appeared, I had everything that any 23-year-old, young woman I had 2 cars, and I mean, life seemed good, but on the inside, I mean, I was just breaths away from dying. I just torture. I'll never forget turning myself into the county jail and being thankful. I was
Mm.
so thankful that there was just some separation between me and the world, as I had known it growing up all my life and just living my life. And so going into that county jail, I never imagined I'd go to prison. It was my first time ever in trouble, ever, arrested. I've been arrested as a juvenile and gone through like a teen court program, but
Mhm.
never imagined I'd go to prison. And so when I was sentenced to prison, about 7 months after turning myself in, I entered into that journey. And, as they say, out of sight, out of mind. And I left behind everything that I knew, my children, my family, life, period. And I stepped into the Florida Department of Correction. It was the first time in my life I ever been around so many women. Growing up, I had always been told that because of my weight, because I was smart, because I was dark, because we didn't have a lot of money, that I was ugly, And so I
Mhm.
had to learn very early to use aggression and anger and power and money, to create influence and to create my femininity. And so that was the first time at 23 years old going into the prison I had ever been around so many women, especially Black women, and so many women with life sentences. And
Wow.
became a house lawyer.
Well,
You know
hang
how
on a
that
second.
happened?
Before you go there, before you go into that, you know, our theme for this year at the Center for Spiritual Living, the whole year's theme is about this idea of enlightenment. And for me, what enlightenment is the releasing of all the false beliefs, the BS, so to speak, that we pick up along the way in life. It seems like we spend the first part of our life picking up all kinds of stuff, putting that baggage in that backpack and carrying it. And some people never let go of that stuff. But to me, what enlightenment is about releasing all of that and coming into the truth of who we are. And so, what I want to know is what was some of the BS that you carried around incarceration, what it meant to be in prison? Um, yeah, yeah. What was some of that, especially the false BS that you let go of?
It almost everything that I was ugly, that it was almost that everything that the world had taught me that was wrong with me, I had discovered was what was great about me. um you know that being smart was wrong, that I'd never be able to achieve, greatness, that yoga, to be honest, I come from a street culture. And so to even just do mind body stress reduction for the first time in Pilates and love it and to realize that it was okay, to like something that was so different, being introduced to different music. It was just so beautiful. And to be honest, it was the first time I learned anything different than what was even, available. And so it gave me choices. It gave me options. And the more options and the more choices that I realized was available, not just outside of me, I started to realize that I had more options in the inside of me. So when all those lies would come up, which would be pain, around my kid's father, around my parents, I didn't get a lot of, mail and phone calls in the inside. So it'd be easy to let your mind run with, what's going on, for the first time, stopping in my life and having to account with everything that I had done to other individuals, and, being able to forgive myself. When you're isolated in a place like that and you're doing, self work, all you have is yourself. So I had to believe that I was worth it. I was worth fighting for, and that I was forgiven. And then that allowed me to discover, to learn, to read, and to believe that I had the ability to choose who was Jhody and then be guided by that inner conscience and those choices to figure out who that was.
Yeah. And what was some of the BS around the people, your peers in prison, that people would be surprised about?
You know, I think people would be surprised that people in prison are living their lives. It was the safest place for me to do my work because all the women there were mothers, they were daughters, they were also experienced, awakened individuals. I mean, we had all gone through some pretty scary, funny, crazy, wow, painful, traumatic, sometimes to hear the stories of things that women had gone through. I mean, I am just forever, blessed, by that. And to just know the pain that women could experience, but could still use that pain to give to a young woman like myself, in the hopes that it would give me light, in my own darkness. And so for me, it was the most healthy example of women I have ever had in my lifetime. It was women with life sentences that taught me how to wash my body, how to pray for my children, how to move through, trauma and pain. So I think even for me, once I was sentenced to 8 years, automatically, I imagine you're about to be a convicted, you're a felon. I was already treated as one, growing up as a Black girl in the hood. So I believed immediately that my life forever would never be successful in the traditional sense. And so when I went to prison, I was actually like prepared. I had a crew of other little women I had an appointed, everything we learned from TV and movies. My goal was to hook up with every bad like queen pin mobster woman there, and she was going to teach me how to be the ultimate hustler, and I was going to come home and I was going to set it off. Like I was going to have, I knew that even my prison sentence, unfortunately, in my neighborhood was going to be a credibility. And so I got to prison thinking I was going to transform into this, power, street power. And I didn't find that there. I didn't find thugs and criminals. I found women living their lives from the inside. Were the circumstances, the outside, was it prison? Yes. But those women there was some of the most talented, strong, I mean, amazing, gifted women. And so that was one of the false narratives that I quickly learned, but also just had the pleasure of living my life beside those women for 7 years in that prison.
Yeah, that was one of my big wake ups, I think, in just working with people, that had been in prison. I come from a family of law enforcement officers, of people that make their living putting folks behind bars. So the idea that I would work with people that were in prison was just so far out. And I had all kinds of ideas and thoughts of what that was going to be, but really what I found was human beings, just people, just like everybody else, who made some mistakes, did some things right, did some things wrong, and paid some major consequences for it. So I'm just always so thrilled to find people who can come out of that traumatic experience, and come out and make something of yourself. I think is just amazing. Because being in prison, what I have seen, I think for the men that I have worked with, I haven't worked much with women, but that prison itself is traumatic experience.
And why I'm very careful about how I tell my story, because people would assume, oh my gosh, like people are, in prison, having enlightening experiences, and like prison is a great thing. But for me, I grew up in violence. I grew up in very hostile environments, and I grew up, in just very scary situations, in neighborhoods that were completely isolated. I grew up in Gainesville, Florida. And so for a lot of people, it's hard to imagine, like, yeah, that happens in Gainesville, a whole isolated neighborhoods of people that live off the grid by a whole set of just different standards and cultures. And so I never in my life had seen grace in body form, mercy in body form. I'd never seen art and culture and dance, as a form of healing, and so I've been blessed to experience the world since becoming a Soros Fellow, and,
Mm-hmm.
since being able to travel and having some amazing experiences over the last 3 years. But I must say that I am forever just touched by the humanity that exists within prisons. And for me, I never batted an eye at the nastiness, the filthiness when male guards treated us, inappropriately. When you were talked to like trash, that was so normal for me,
Mm-hmm.
to lack and to not have and to be, taken advantage of. That was so normal to me. But to have sisters right there with you going through it, like resilience, and like turning that into, joy. I never experienced that before. And it's still one of my biggest strategies that I use now, especially still living in a community that doesn't always embrace you as who you are, but more so what you've gone through. And so I never forget seeing an article by the Miami Herald once I had
Mm.
gotten out of prison about all of the abuse that was happening at Lowell, which was the facility I spent my time at. And I remember like almost like being like shocked. Like I admitted to myself for the first time, like, wow, that stuff happened. But like also realizing how like the love that I shared between my sisters, how it just like protected you, within that. But how sad it was that I was so used to it before prison that it never impacted me, as something or caused me to even think that it was wrong while I was there. I thought it was okay for us to be treated that way, that no one would even care.
Yeah. That was that series of articles was one of the things that got me interested in doing prison work. And I wanted to work with women. And we were not allowed into Lowell at the time. The opportunity happened for us to go to Marion Correctional, but we were not allowed at Lowell. I think they just didn't want volunteers there, but I don't know what the reason was specifically that we were not allowed to be there, but we weren't. So um, anyway, just kudos to you for making it out of that and for speaking to the humanity that exists there and those women who were able to lift you, even knowing that they were never getting out themselves. Yeah. So
Never,
tell me
and never did they imagine they would.
that what?
And I was saying, life is going on
Yeah.
inside of, prisons. Life is still happening for people in prisons. And for me, we talk about recidivism, but when I was released for the first year of my release, I always wanted to go back. I mean, I would lash out against my children, my husband, and, I had achieved everything. I was in college, I was married, I had my children, I had a job. I had, outside support, but something inside of my brain had registered that at Lowell with those women were a safe place. And that's actually what led me into, my own spiritual journey on the outside. When I realized that I was thinking that, and then I started saying it, I scream it all the time. I just want to go back. I just want to go back. And I never forget a old MBSR, mind, body, stress reduction class, where they taught us if you're thinking it and you're saying it and feeling it, it's just a matter of time before you do it. And I
Right.
was feeling it and I was saying it and I was thinking it. And I knew right then, you're going to go back to prison. And I actually reached out to that old Buddhist facilitator. I found him on Facebook and I said, look, I'm going to go back to prison. And that was the start of me seeking my true self after incarceration. Because even though I gained all the titles they said you should, mom, college, husband, I had did everything. Statistically, they said I couldn't. It wasn't enough. The prison and the hurt was inside. And that's always special to me.
Wow. So, what were some of the skills that you gained in prison that you're now building your new path on, your new life, and how that came about?
And thank you for saying that, because when you do a resume, it's easy to list like all the amazing jobs and titles. And I laugh in my shower so much thinking about how people look at me as like Jhody Polk, and all of these essential skills and just ability to use them were really carved out in prison. And
Mm-hmm.
then I've just learned the language, and the skill set to bring them outside of me and communicate them, now in my work. But when I
Mm-hmm.
think back, the ability to listen, deep listening. Countless number of women who bed I would sit at and listen to their stories. Even as a law clerk, that was my job, and women would come into the law library, and I would assist them with their criminal, civil, legal, cases, and just being able to create the space for a person to share themselves and share them stories and reflect back to them who they are. as well as, participatory organizing. I had always been the type of person while I was in prison. It was so important to me because we got moved around. You never knew any morning they could knock on your bed and say, get up and move you to a different prison. And so being a law clerk, it was always important to me that women I didn't just help them, but I taught them how to do it themselves. And so I love, thinking back of how many women, I would have them write emotion in their language, use curse words, use your slang, be you, and then we translate that over to legal language. How many women, I've been able to help them in a participatory, fashion, as well as creating space. Even when I was in the county jail, I realized that that was our space. And so I would host talent shows. I would sit up all night and write out like nominee ballots, and then I would pass them out, and then we would like cast different ballots for different awards. And it gave us the space to be ourselves, and we celebrate. And then, taking that into the law library, creating space in the dorm, creating space in the law library had always just been very just good at doing that. And then reading energy. A lot of times we see in the physical. I always tell people my superpower, although I cannot physically see with my glasses on, it was in the jails and the prison. I learned that I could see a person beyond just their physical, form.
Mm.
And so the first time I learned about the iceberg, I was doing backflips because like I knew that, to be like spiritually true. And then it became, this way for me to communicate. And so like realizing that people were more than even their story and their background and just mom and title. And so those are some of, as an alchemist, as a peace builder, and as a defender of justice, those are some of my biggest tools, inside of, my toolbox on creating the space, but also just the relationships for people to decide and then do their work to be their best selves.
Yeah. So you referenced the iceberg, and just for anybody that doesn't know what that is, the idea that we're all like this iceberg, that what we see in our behaviors and what we see of one another is just the little smallest tip of what that human being is really all about, and all their needs and their values and their feelings and all that stuff that you don't see above the surface. That's what that's about. So I would say that is your superpower, girl, is to connect with people,
I have to say, Cindy, um, I listen inwardly, and myself is also telling me that self. That was one of the biggest discoveries that I found while I was incarcerated, was exactly who is Jhody, and definitely one of my biggest tools that I use now, whether I'm on stage in a private setting. And I think that's the greatest tool that any of us can bring to any situation. It's just our most authentic self, and that's for anybody that knows me. Not always pretty in the best, but
Mhm.
also discovering, Jhody, in prison has allowed me to, as I even just personally grow as a person, to
Yeah.
still be able to see others. We talk about empathy, but like when we actually exercise these different skills to be a leader. And I think a lot of time what does that mean? And I do a lot of, just self-evaluation, especially when people regard you as a leader. I think that's so important. And so to realize that I was definitely practicing um, leadership, and that's something that I take very seriously now in my community as well.
Yes, we're always learning and always growing. That's one of the things I love about you. So tell people what you're into right now, including the Soros Fellowship,
Whew.
which I just touched on just a little bit. Y'all remember this,
So it's
because this
interesting.
woman went from 8 years in prison to what she's about to tell you she's been doing.
And it was in the blink of an eye. I was working in hotels. I only wanted to go to law school. That's all. I wanted to go to law school. I had heard about Desmond Meade, and who was working on the campaign to restore, who established that campaign to restore voting rights. Took a temporary job on the campaign for like 4 months, and at the end of that, magically met Hart and Jeffrey at the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building. And so the same week I started working at RPCP was the same week I applied for the Soros Fellowship. And so it was about 3 months into working at RPCP that I also then won the Soros Fellowship. So I entered into this path of peace and justice simultaneously. And while being at the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, I was really able to help translate our different practices into the community, um, you know, to the community space, with those most vulnerable and impacted by injustice through our community justice initiative. And through my Soros Fellowship, I had the amazing honor to work with incarcerated jailhouse lawyers throughout the United States. So, not just helping jailhouse lawyers to be able to be the best paralegals while incarcerated, but then also introducing the peace practices, restorative justice, trauma awareness, conflict resolution, mediation, social emotional learning, so that even those peace practicing skill sets, and we were using them as tools in the law library, but it could also be a space that we can model it in the prison, that the law library could be a restorative space for learning, which is legal empowerment for me. In addition to being a community peace builder, I am a legal empowerment practitioner, which we believe in. Before people can just be shapers of the law, they have to have the opportunity to first know the law, use the law, and then shape the law, which is important to me, even with Amendment 4, because I was formerly incarcerated. People just expected me to vote. People expected me to get on board, but no one really realized that. I mean, no one had taught me about voting generationally. My family had been locked out, of voting. And so when I really had the opportunity to learn legal empowerment, to not just as a peace builder create the space, but through our justice work, support that knowing, understanding, using, and practice, we can really now effectively, see community members participating in programs that we see, like community justice at RPCP, where community is actually coming into alignment with the organizations, institutions, and systems that govern their day-to-day lives, not just to have conversations, but to strategically, partner in how our government is run. So right now, I'm proud to be the founder and director of the Legal Empowerment and Advocacy Hub, where we use the best practices of legal empowerment, community peace building, and community organizing to expand access to peace, justice, and power for isolated, incarcerated, and vulnerable communities who are most affected by injustice. And so we are the first and only participatory defense hub in the state of Florida, where families with incarcerated loved ones are actually learning how to and partnering with public defenders and criminal defense lawyers to get the best outcome for their loved ones through the pretrial phase of the criminal justice system. And so, very excited. Um, Cindy, the
Mhm.
for me, incarceration is not just one thing. It's not just pretrial. It's not just prison. It's not just reentry. It's a continuous cycle. So through the Legal Empowerment and Advocacy Hub, as well as the work that I do at the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, I'm proud to say that we're at every point of that incarceration cycle, and not just doing the work and teaching the work, but empowering those most impacted, those who are within those courtrooms, jails, prisons, with the skill sets as well as just the space to be, so that we can truly tear down this monster that we call mass incarceration in the United States.
Yeah. So it's about empowering people from a very grassroots level. And you're part of it. It's a worldwide network of people that you are now affiliated with. Yes?
It's amazing. Our budget is under $1,000, and people like we're international, as well as national. We're fully operational in 3 prisons in New York. The Jailhouse Lawyers Initiative is actually housed at New York University at NYU Law School. We have currently just started partnering with FSU. here in the state of Florida. We're redeveloping for the first time in Florida history the law clerk training for law clerks in the state of Florida, and we're moving into Texas and Maryland next. And this has all been through a network. A lot of what I learned at the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, the power of relationships with lawyers and judges and community members from all over the world. And people are like, how do you do that? We do it through relationships. And we don't just go in looking at the problem. We've created the space to first just be people to connect. Jeffrey Weisberg says that all the time. I learned that at RPCP, you got to connect before you correct. And so when we see that in real time, when people are able to first connect, and when we're able to look at solutions, and when we're able to do individually our parts in a collective understanding, we have just been blessed to see the opportunities to work with various groups to create opportunities to make sure that people are included and people are represented.
Now, just to brag on you a little bit, for those who might not know what a Soros Fellowship is, how many people apply for that, and how you were one of, was it 17, 18, or less than that?
So with my cohort, 15 people were chosen.
Okay. Yeah. About how many
And
apply
over
for?
thousands,
Thousands of
thousands of
people.
people applied. They narrowed it down to about 500 and then down to 50. And then they choose 15 individuals. I'm the fourth person ever chosen in the state of Florida.
Yes. And where have you traveled since getting that Soros Fellowship?
So I pretty much live in New York post COVID. I've gone to DC. We have beautiful partnerships in DC. I've never gone to a place and not came out with a partner. So
Mhm.
Texas is our home. Louisiana is our home. Shout outs to Alabama is our home. Illinois is our home. I've actually gone to Budapest. I have spoken as an American representative at the United Nations last year. I was proud to be one of few Americans, but to show that Americans do believe in peace and to represent our country at the United Nations last year was amazing. Would have been at Global Fest representing America this year, unfortunately with COVID. But I've had the opportunity to travel Boston, California, all over the country, as well as out of the country, even as what we call a violent form of a convicted felon in Florida. I've been able to have these amazing opportunities.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. So one of our visions at the Center for Spiritual Living, and not just our center, this is like the whole organization, which is worldwide organization, is a world that works for everybody. Right? A world that works for everyone. So I'm just interested in what that looks like for you from your vantage point. What could a world that works for everyone look like?
A world to me is simple. All my mentors keep saying, Jody, like they think I'm crazy, but to me, a world that works and looks like, all of us working together is a world where we can see one another. First, be able to just see one another. And that's been one of my greatest gifts is now my community is of who I am. And that takes a deep practice of even just showing up, as I am. I think the more that we have the ability to see each other, to hear each other, we'll then have the ability to celebrate our differences, our diversity. We're sometimes so programmed, by everything that we hear and we read and we eat, and to just be so individual, lies. And the narrative is so created for us. No matter where you go, someone is telling you who you are and what you should, believe. And so I believe that the more we get the opportunities, and that's what I love about all the amazing different models, that are happening all over that are really geared towards self empowerment, not training someone to do a specific thing or to be something specific, but to be your most authentic self. The more I think we'll get to see that magic, that happens. The more that I'm just Jody is like alchemy. I totally believe in magic now. I believe in, you know, sometimes we try to teach people. You can't teach anybody to be a human being. We can only create the space to do that. And I think the more we all get to enjoy our and be a part of our own personal discovery, the more we'll be mindful of our brother and our sister, beside us. And a lot of times people see it as the Wonder Woman, the superpower. People call me all kinds of superhero things. And to me, they're not superhero things. It's just a gift of being a human being, and to just be me, and for that to be enough. And we can only grow that in love. We can only grow that from a place of understanding. And so I see that when we talk about enlightenment, I guess that's what enlightenment is to me. So as people are waking up and seeing themselves and embracing themselves just as they are, I have total hope and faith that we will be so excited to continuously do that for those around us.
Mm. So that kind of leads into my last question for you, which is, what does freedom mean for you, Jhody? That's our theme for the month, right? The idea of freedom. What does?
Freedom,
Mhm. Easy question,
freedom
right?
to
For your
me
last
is
one.
choice. Freedom is Uh, and it's so important to me because I discovered, I didn't learn freedom. I discovered freedom in prison. And the good thing about a discovery is when you realize that it was always yours and that you always had it and that nobody could give it to you, you realize that nobody then can take it from me. And
Mm.
I discovered freedom within me in a prison, in the worst prison, biggest prison statistically, right, that exists in our physical world. And so for me, freedom is the every opportunity that I have to be me. When Donna brought us into this space and I realized, like, whoa, I don't have to be RPCP JLI Leah, I just have to be Jhody. That's freedom. And I make mistakes. I'm a human being. I get upset. I experience life. I stick my nose in the wrong places. I make mistakes. I am free. And to me, that's just to be all things, all the time. And to be able to choose. There, like I was just saying before, there were a time where everything about me was chosen by somebody else, and not always bad. Even my mom, my teachers, my mentors, everything about me was influenced and shaped from outside of me. And so freedom is now my ability to be able to choose from with inside of me who I am, and how I show up, and to be able to do that every day in every way that comes up. And that to me is freedom.
Mm. That is so beautifully said. You are a bold, beautiful warrior woman, and I just love you so much. Is there anything else you want to add to this conversation? Anything we didn't talk about? You feel like you want to? Oh, let me share your contact information here.
Please. I just really want to encourage us all. And I don't consider my work. People like, how do you do all that? If you read my bio, most of those positions that I've held are still the positions that I hold now. And it's because it's not my job, it's my life. All I have to do is show up, and all I have to do is be myself. And, my community responds to me accordingly because I'm in the right place. And so I really just try to encourage us who are doing the work, but also a lot of people reach out to me wanting to do the work and trying to figure out, what is mine to do? How do I help? And so I just always, for a long time, I thought I was selfish. I've realized along the way that the more I take care of myself, somehow naturally it just bubbles over into what's considered my work. So love yourself, take care of yourself, and put yourself as a priority. It can sometimes feel really bad to do that. And in my own life, I've realized that oftentimes the things that feel the scariest and the most wrong are oftentimes like leading me to the right places. So there really is joy in what we sometimes consider as suffering. And don't hesitate to go into dark places. I love going into prisons, because it is in those places that, for me, it seems the most fertile to plant and to sow and to, just celebrate as life is growing, as well as neighborhoods that are most impacted by harm and violence. Statistically, we know where all these people are before they get to prison. Statistically, we know where the hurting are, where our elderly are, where the sick are, where, the marginalized are. So we don't have to wait until people are incarcerated. To me, physical incarceration is a reflection of deeper incarceration. So, in
Yes.
creating that space, a lot of times the institution is there, but it may be going into a school and just creating a space for little girls or for little boys or for singing, for dancing, for celebrating.
Mhm.
So believe that weird stuff that comes up in your head and your heart. People tell me all the time my dreams are too big. No, they're not. You just got to get a bigger team, and love is power. Love is truly power.
Love you. Love you. Love you. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to bring
Thank
Donna
you,
back. I'm
Cindy.
going to bring Donna into the stream for a moment here and see. Let's see. You're muted. If there's anything you want to say or ask or add to this conversation.
She's a queen in my eyes, for real. It's not a question of how can somebody make it through this. It was yours to do, and it was yours to make it through, and for you to be the shining example that you are. Bravo, man. Bravo. It's amazing.
Yeah. And when you're doing what's yours to do, everything is provided.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. The more you trust it, the more you lean into what life is presenting you. You do what is yours to do, and everything you need will be there.
Mm-hmm.
You're a testament to that.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Both of you
it
are.
shows up.
Absolutely.
Even Soros. I'm yes.
Yeah, you disappeared for a moment, but you're back. Yes. All right. So we're going to come together again as a group on Zoom for those who want to join us. Richard or someone will put the link in the chat. I'm looking here to see if there's any questions for anyone. We got lots of thank yous. Teresa and Cynthia Graham and Grady's on today. Marcy, Mary Lou. Anybody else on here? I don't see any specific questions, but if they have them, they will join us in the Zoom chat. And you'll be with us, right, Jhody? You be joining us in Zoom afterward? I think we got a little bit of a lag time here. All right. So
Yes.
yes,
So I'll
great.
be joining by video. I'll be
All
joining
right.
by phone.
All right. Terrific. Thank you. All right. So we're going to go on to the next phase here. I will see you both in a little bit on Zoom. All right. Okay, well, that was quite a conversation. You see why I love that woman. And now it is time for us to do our gifts and tithes here. Let me see. Yes, time to share our gifts. And I so appreciate everybody who gives to the Center for Spiritual Living. Let me take this off of here. We can do what we do because of the giving of the people in our community. For those who donate their time, their talents, their treasures, we just greatly appreciate everybody who gives to the Center for Spiritual Living, and it allows us to do the wonderful work that we do and to keep bringing you these great guests and to maintain our building so that we can come back together again here very soon. We're looking forward to that. So if you would like to give to the Center for Spiritual Living, this is the way that you do it. You can take that telephone number, and what you do is you text message that phone number and you put the amount of money that you would like to donate to the center, and then you just hit send. It's that easy. Or you can go to PayPal at cslocala.org. You can do the text to tithe at 352-320-5110. And this is our affirmation that we say, and I invite you to say it along with me. And if you care to join us, it is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am grateful. And I am so, so very grateful for everyone, as I said, that gives to the Center for Spiritual Living, and for the work, for the things that are coming up here really soon. Let's see. I want to say a special thank you to Corinne Dean for getting our newsletter out. If you'd like to be on our list to receive the newsletter, just send us a note, and you can send it in the family chat, or you can send it to the website. We'll be sure to put you on that list. I want to tell you that this evening we will be having a conversation around the documentary called 13th, and it is about the 13th Amendment. It goes along a lot with some of the conversation that Jhody was leading us in today about mass incarceration and how we have gotten to the position that we are in our country with much of the racial strife. And so it's very, very informative. It's not easy to watch. I've seen it already, and I will be watching it again this evening. So we'll be joining together for those who want to beforehand. I believe it's at 6:30 or 6 o'clock. I can't remember. I'm sure that will be in the chat as well. And so kind of like going to the movie theater, where you gather together and then you go in and watch the movie together, and then afterward we'd have a conversation. So at 8:30 we will be having a follow-up discussion to the movie for those who would like to join us in Zoom. And then the other thing we have coming up, Circle Up Center for Practical Peace Building will be offering 2 workshops that have to do with, again, a lot of what Jhody talked about, the idea of social emotional learning and conflict resolution and having compassion. And the series is called Words Matter. Words Matter. So the first part is going to be an internal look at ourselves, our self-awareness, so that we can understand ourselves and therefore understand others better. And the second part is going to give us some ideas on how to engage with people and have those difficult conversations that are going to help us bridge the divide in so many different areas. We're just in such need of healing. That this series, I believe, is going to help people to facilitate some of the healing in their relationships with family and within themselves. And so I hope some of you can join us for that. Let me see if there's any other notes here from anyone. Okay, folks who are going to be in on the movie tonight. So good to see you again, Jhody. Your story is not only amazing, but inspiring. And that was from Norma. And yes, indeed, it was. So let's see what else we've got going on here. I think that is it for now. I'm going to put up our prayer for protection here and invite you all to join me in this prayer that comes from our brothers and sisters at Unity, called the Prayer of Protection. And it comes from James Dillett Freeman. And let me, whoops, need to get off of that. There you go. And here is the prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God protects us. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And I just pray and affirm that you all have a fabulous week. And I look forward to seeing some of you this evening on Zoom, and look forward to seeing the rest of you next week. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves.